nobody like voluntarily leaves that kind of arrangement, which is peace-loving, progressive, you know, enabling pets like mine to travel about with little passports. I mean, it's such a civilized place, Europe. I can go, well, I used to be able to go until December 31st. I can go and travel anywhere in Europe and settle and, you know, have a life and, you know, fall in love and whatever. But after December 31st, none of that's possible because we've done the dumbed down Roman soldier up, you know, against wisdom. Well, okay, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. But do they? I want to take the same forensic study of that cross discourse to Brexit. And I want to ask, okay, so the millions of voters that voted in the referendum for Brexit, a lot of them didn't know what they were doing. They were just brainwashed with media bombardment. Europe's evil. We hate the Huns. We hate the Germans. They're all eating too much garlic. We hate the frogs. You know, the kind of gutter media of England particularly. Brainwashed. And it's what they've been brought up on. It's like they don't realise it's propaganda. So they just vote for it because the Sun, you know, the Express, the Mail all chant anti-European slogans. So, okay, so those millions of Brexit voters, well, Father forgive them, they didn't know what they were doing. What about, you know, kind of people that actually had a view and did know what they were doing? The people in Parliament, the Conservative MPs, the Rees-Moggs, who have this sort of ideological justification for Brexit. They think it's a good thing. They think it's the right thing to do. Well, put me in debate with any single one of them and I will convince them within half an hour they were wrong. But their thought world is all they know to go on. You know, they think that they follow certain axioms that have made them think it was the right thing to do because the vote of the referendum went in a certain way. You know, the axioms are false. The referendum was never more than advisory. It was not won in Scotland and Northern Ireland. It was not won in many pockets throughout England and Wales. And it had no more than advisory power. You know. So there are countless arguments why you can say to the ideologues, the people that genuinely believe in Brexit, and were its architects, the Daniel Hannans and co, they convinced themselves that it's right intellectually. They went down rabbit holes of their own making. Dominic Cummings is another. So these are the equivalents of the kind of the rabbinical council that are saying, let's crucify the guy because he's a danger, he's a threat. So let's destroy the European Union because it's a threat. To what? Well, to our sovereignty, to our Britishness. That's all a lie. I mean, Britain is totally as much. I mean, the greatest threat to our sovereignty as a nation is going to come from Brexit as the UK implodes and breaks up. Scotland was very happy sharing its sovereignty with Europe. It's less happy sharing it with a bunch of crooks in Westminster. And Scotland will be leaving the Union within a year, I think. And that is karma. That's how the weird works in this wonderful world. When you don't stand for truth. So the crooks that are behind Brexit, you know, are like the kind of evil, intelligent but evil people who want to destroy the goodness, who want to destroy the values that Europe stands for. Yes, it stands for freedom. It stands for justice. It stands for prosperity for all. It stands for social values of sharing and caring. It stands for sharing and pooling intelligence. It stands for science. So against that, the forces of nationalism are reared. You know, the demons of me, ego culture. And sort of, and all the, I mean, it's incredible to see the warships You know, my analysis right from day one is that Brexit, the people behind it, the people that I think cannot be forgiven, I think, yes, a lot of people, yes, they can be forgiven, they didn't know what they were doing, but there are some people higher up who did know what they were doing, and therefore there is no forgiveness for them. And in this I put the military-industrial elites. I put the billionaires behind Britain and America's military corporations that make the nuclear submarines, that make the nuclear missiles, and that, you know, run Britain as a sort of a war machine, and don't want peace. They're threatened by the European Union's commitment to peace. Well, I'm on the peace side because I'm a peace scholar, and I'm calling out these elites who I don't think can be forgiven. And I'm sorry, Jesus, but, you know, the people that were seriously responsible for your crucifixion, likewise, you know, you can warn them a couple of times, but if they still go on doing it, they can't be forgiven. And that is, I'm afraid, the kind of military war machine that has been dropping bombs on Yemen, that has been behind, you know, conflict and violence and wars going on in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, dropping bombs and thinking that's cool, you know. And that's Theresa May's husband, Philip May, who's part of the financiers behind Britain's war machine. And I'm afraid it includes circles around the Queen and the, you know, the establishment, who seem to think that it's carry on business as usual, army manoeuvres, let's just, you know, get on with trooping the colour. I mean, I'd love to see the Queen come out next year and say, sorry, with Brexit being so grim and it's all tragic, we're not going to do trooping the colour. In fact, we're abolishing the army. We're going to have a defensive force, 10,000 people, and they're trained in non-violent martial arts and mediation, and the army's being abolished. Now, a true monarch would say that, right? But unfortunately, we have a sort of figurehead of the military establishment who hasn't read her Bible for a while. Hasn't obviously read the thing about the crucifixion and forgiveness. And no doubt she'll give us a Christmas message, but, you know, I hope, well, one can only hope for last-minute conversions and miracles. And, you know, having met the Queen, I think she's got the potential of enlightenment, but she needs to get away from the dark forces that have imprisoned her and imprisoned that wing of the church, which is not living up to Christ's actual teachings. And it's being hijacked by these Brexiteers who, as I say, most of them are innocent. There's a cadre at the top that are, evil. Because to do wrong willfully, knowing its negative effect on people, that is the definition of evil. And that's what I'm afraid Boris Johnson comes into that category. He is not innocent. He knows, he's intelligent enough to realise what he's doing. So there can't, you know, if Brexit isn't stopped, and it's still possible that there could be a delay, another year extension, and we can, you know, get a proper deal agreed where there's a gentle Brexit and hopefully a second referendum as part of that package. Well, if that doesn't happen and we just crash out, I'm afraid, you know, there is no forgiveness for these people for what they've done to my country and the United Kingdom, which I love, and what they're trying to do to Europe, which I love. It's an action against love. And that, I think, is, you know, never acceptable, because that's an action from fear and hate and anger and ego. Okay, so there we are. That's my summing up of my Sunday talk this week. You know, we've gone from the heights of comparative theology and philosophy, and then I've tried to apply that to the specifics of this debacle that's been going on. And I hope you find it useful. You know, it's a very sobering time for us here in Europe, us Brits that are stranded here. I literally don't know whether I'll be allowed to go on living here in France after 31st of December. We have this existential unease, let's say, And it's not easy to live with. It's been horrendous. Okay, now I'm going to finish with a poem, and we'll see how this sounds. Right. It's called Tongue-Tied. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about this poem. This poem is occasioned by a visit to Malaga in Spain, the beautiful beach of Malaga. And I read in the tourist guide that in the old days, in 17th century, 16th century Spain, if a British ship or a Protestant ship was washed up and sailors, scrambled ashore, Protestants in those days were regarded as heretics. I mean, there was a war between Spain and England. I mean, it was dark days. And what happened is these Protestants were then taken out at low tide, way out to sea, and tied to the stake with their hands behind their backs. And then they were left, and as the tide came in, they drowned. And I don't know how often this was done. I don't know if it was always done. I don't know if it was done for hundreds of years. I mean, it was just a sort of guidebook, a bit of trivia. But I was very moved by that horrible thing, right? Because, I mean, whether you're a Catholic or a Protestant, I think you should live in fellowship and amity. I'm an Anglican Catholic Protestant, and, I would never do that to anyone, whether you're a Protestant or a Catholic. I think it's wrong to kill people in such a gruesome way. But anyway, that's what was done. I'm sure it wasn't always done, but it's probably done too often. And this is the poem I wrote about. It's called Tongue-Tied. I feel a bit like one of those sailors now, tied at sea, waiting for the flood of Brexit to come in and destroy my life and everything I believe in, and my beautiful country. And my beautiful continent, I'm like that sailor. And here's the poem, Tongue-Tied. My tongue is in the sea, buried in a place where the waves tumble too far down. My heart is in the sea, in a place where pearls slowly blink, growing amidst soft, fleshy darkness. My mouth is in the fissures, diving deep, down deep. Breath holding, lunging, lungs bursting, until out it pops, the pearl of great price. My kingdom is at the end of the long dive, through where the cavern ceiling goes under the waters. And you have to go through and holding 1, 2, 3, 9, and we're still counting. My tongue is in the sea, at the end of the waves' swell, at the curled up coil of the shell, at the inner ear of the mind's twists, and still listening. Right, Bishy, say goodbye. Bye-bye. Right.